Gamers. What's happening? We're back, baby. That's right. We got the freshie. We're looking fresh. We got the drip. We got the swag. This is the Poison Imbuement guide for pushing nightmare dungeons up to level 100. This is going to provide the best damage output through the Paragon board, plus the best defense, in my opinion, through aspects that we're going to put on our gear. So let's do it. Let's get into it. I did make a max roll for this, so I'm just going to go off the max roll. Link is going to be in the description. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you sub. So first of all, on the helmet, we're going with Aspect of Might for the 20% DR. We want 4 ranks of Poison Imbuement, max life, total armor, cooldown reduction. These are your best affixes for your helmet. If you don't want max life, maybe you can want some dex for a little bit more damage. Maybe you want some all stat if you need to pump out the all stat, but the 4 best affixes are these ones right here. On our chest piece, Aspect of Disobedience, on juice up that armor. We don't need this on our amulet. There's something else we're going to put on our amulet, but for our chest piece, we're going to want quad damage reduction, or trip damage reduction and plus to life. So I have damage reduction to close, max life, damage reduction, total armor percent. If you didn't want max life, you can do damage reduction from close, damage reduction from distant, damage reduction from poisoned is also great because we're poisoning. And topaz in the armor. I forgot. Just throw a ruby in there for some extra health. In the armor, we want some topaz. Damage reduction while crowd controlled is going to be important when you're pushing those higher tiers. On our gloves, we are going with Manglers. Manglers is important because you're keeping that daze up on the vulnerable enemies, keeping that CC. CC is very important. Daze is very important. Allows you to knock down, apply more damage, damage to CC, that kind of thing. Crit strike chance, lucky hit, attack speed, and plus ranks to twisting blades. These are your best affixes for your gloves. Crit strike chance is important, especially now, paired with lucky hit chance for bursting venoms, because we know bursting venoms was bugged and now it was fixed. It seems a lot harder to proc your bursting venom. In this build, I'm going to make sure that we boost every way possible to make sure that happens as much as possible. On our pants, once again, all DR, topaz. We're going with Aspect of Stolen Vigor. This is a great aspect to pair with your momentum key passive. We want damage reduction, max life, total armor, and plus 4 ranks to Dark Shroud. Dark Shroud is absolutely OP when it comes to damage reduction, and the amount of damage reduction that you get with the plus skills to Dark Shroud is it's immense. It's pretty much unmatched. This is probably over. This would be like equivalent to over 15% additional damage reduction. Massive damage reduction. For our boots, Penitent Greaves. I really like Penitent Greaves. There's not a lot of aspects that you'll need for your boots. There are some really good aspects for your boots, but you get the huge 26% movement speed. The crowd control duration and the slow duration are right. Cold resist is meh. But it gives you 10% multiplicative modifier, which is massive. It applies chill, it applies CC. This is going to help you do more damage. Usually you can't get this kind of extra damage from boots, except for Penitent Greaves. That's why we're doing it. We want to get the most damage that we can, because damage is important. On our offhand, we have a crossbow, right? So dex, all stat, vulnerable, and core skill are going to be your best affixes. For Poison Imbuement, we don't want critical strike damage. We don't want critical strike with imbued skills. That doesn't work with Poison Imbuement. We know this. We found out critical strike damage is not a part of Poison Imbuement. Vulnerable does. Vulnerable works. Core skill we know now is its own damage bucket when it comes to Poison Imbuement. We don't know if it's a bug or if that's the way it's intended. But for now, season 1, these are the best affixes to have. And then we want accelerating. This is going to give you up to 50% attack speed. Attack speed is king in this build. You want to get the 100% extra attack speed, right? So we can get that juiced up to 50% when we're critting with our Twisting Blaze attack. And then obviously we want to put amethysts for damage over time, because poison damage is damage over time. But If you don't get core skill, I mean, poison damage, damage to poisoned, anything like that, you know, would any kind of additive modifier would be fine, but core skill is better. And then you can get a massive 58.5% core skill, which is just like, that's nuts. That's a huge damage boost. Over on our amulet, cooldown reduction, movement speed, ranks to all imbuement skills, and then I like percentage to dex, because dex is a multiplicative modifier when it comes to poison imbuement and your damage. Also, dex is going to help. It's going to help out with just like, you know, your raw damage. It's going to help out with, you know, increased dodge chance. It's also survivability. And then we are putting on Umbrous aspect. And then because this is on amulet, you're going to have a 90% chance to gain a free Dark Shroud. This is going to be nuts because we're going to be spamming puncture, right? Because later on you'll see we'll have petulant points, but when you're spamming your puncture, you're going to be attacking so fast because of the 50% IAS increase from accelerating. So pretty much we're gonna have your Dark Shroud up like all the time. This is gonna provide great damage reduction. On our first ring, we want fire and lightning resistance. This is the best in my opinion. Poison, you'll get some poison resistance through your Paragon board. Right, there's lots of fire, lots of lightning damage in Nightmare Dungeons that could cause problems. So we obviously want vulnerable, lucky hit chance, critical strike chance, and resource generation. These are your 4 best affixes on your rings when using Poison Imbuement. And then also, this is where we're going to put our Twisting Blades. Onto our next ring. Again, fire and lightning resistances, vulnerable, lucky hit, crit strike, and then resource gen. And then this is where we're going to put our petulant points on a ring. I've seen petulant points on amulets. I've seen petulant points on your offhand. I think 150% potency is fine for PvE. And then as for our malignant hearts, we want our decoy, right? You use a subterfuge, spawns a decoy. It's going to help you. Like the AI is phenomenal with this skill. It literally works every time. It takes priority. All the enemies will go towards your decoy shadow clone that it spawns that stands there. It's going to allow you to be safe. You know, any kind of AoE range attacks, they're going to focus that. It's going to be less focus on you, allow for more survivability. And then also we want DR, the 20% damage reduction. And then when you use, you know, a subterfuge skill, it's going to cause an explosion. And then obviously with the Wrathful Heart for the Barber. Barber is disgusting in PvE. Absolutely shredding pretty much, you know, all content when you have this in. This is specifically for Nightmare Dungeons. Something like Uber Lilith is a little different. You're probably going to want Creeping Death for Uber Lilith, but this build specifically made for pushing higher tier Nightmare Dungeons. Weapons, Bursting Venom on your main hand, vulnerable, core skill, all stat, dex. You want to make sure you get as much all stat as you can to help with your Paragon board for your rare nodes. Obviously Amethyst is going to go into your weapons, and then Ashira's Conjar, huge boost to lucky hit, huge boost to attack speed. This in conjunction with aspect of acceleration, you're going to be attacking fast as lightning. Right? Attack speed is king. Ashira's Conjar is king. This is the best offhand. We don't want to use Condemnation because we know that the core skill modifier does not work with Poison Imbuement. Only additive core skill modifiers. So Ashira's Conjar, best offhand for sure. Skill tree. Let's get into the skill tree, boys. All right, skill tree. Obviously, puncture, fundamental puncture. Want to max out our twisting blades. We are using improved twisting blades for the days. Advanced twisting blades is fine if you need the cooldown reduction. It works. It helps. If anything, you cooldown reduction is pretty important. But if we're getting cooldown reduction from our helmet and our amulet, this little bit is not necessary. The days is always better. Going to make sure that we're CC'd. Sturdy. 12% damage reduction from close. It's massive. And siphoning strikes. I know before I said siphoning strikes sucks compared to how it used to be. We are pushing higher tier Nightmare Dungeons. We want to make sure we can get any kind of survivability that we can. This is going to help when we're dealing damage. Critical strikes will allow you to heal up to 3% of your maximum life. And because we're attacking so fast, we're going to get a lot of critical strikes. This is going to help us. And Also, in combination with Stolen Vigor, there's going to be a lot of life that we're getting back. Make sure we can sustain and stay in the fight. Go down to our agility skill tree. Shadow Step. I like the stunning. If you don't want stunning and you want to keep your cooldown up as possible, then you can go to Disciplined. Stunning is really good. It applies extra CC. And then 1 point, Rapid Gambits, Concussive, and Trick Attacks. This is going to help with your critical strike chance. Trick Attacks is going to help with Knockdown when you are dazing. Knockdown is important. Knockdown also counts as a CC type, so it's just an additional modifier. And you're pretty much going to be juggling enemies because we're attacking so fast and we're applying so much daze, and just everything's going to be knocked down. You're going to see those fatties doing the worm. It's going to be great. Subterfuge skills. We are putting into Dark Shroud. We didn't put 5 out of 5 into Dark Shroud. We only did 1 point Dark Shroud. But we are also going to countering Dark Shroud because you're going to gain 8% crit strike chance if you have 4 or more Dark Shrouds up at a time. And because we have Umbrus, we're going to make sure that we have Dark Shroud up as much as possible. We want to spec into crit strike chance because this is going to help proc our bursting venoms. And then we are going into Poison Trap. 1 point to Poison Trap, and then we're going to countering Poison Trap. I like countering Poison Trap again because bursting venoms was fixed. It doesn't proc as much. This is going to give us a 30% chance to make sure we get our imbuement skill back. 10% multiplicative modifier. It's good, but I feel like it's not necessary. I'd rather go for more consistency and sustainability over more damage. We're going to get a lot of damage from our Paragon board. This multiplier isn't necessary. Imbuments, obviously maxing Poison Imbuement, make our way to blended Poison Imbuement. We want a 3 out of 3 debilitating toxins for the damage reduction, 3 out of 3 deadly venom for increased poisoning damage, 3 out of 3 3 out of 3 precision imbuement. This is going to increase our critical strike chance with imbued skills. This is also going to help with proccing bursting venoms. Down into our ultimate skill tree. Innervation gains more energy and lucky hit, and then Alchemist's Fortune, 15% increased lucky hit chance when attacking with non-physical damage. We're attacking with non-physical damage. This is massive. This is huge. This goes to the proccing bursting venoms. Trap Mastery. We're using Poison Trap. Increase your crit chance to help proc bursting venoms. You see where I'm going here? We're doing everything we can to fix the fix, right? We were playing with the bug bursting venoms. It was proccing like crazy. It was massive damage. Everything we're speccing into now is making sure we can keep up with that consistency as much as possible. Down here, 1 adrenaline rush, 3 out of 3 for haste. Haste is amazing. You got attack speed, energy regeneration, and then for our key passive, we're using momentum, DR, increased movement speed, increased energy regeneration, and then also we're using Stolen Vigor. For now, PvE, for pushing higher tiers, momentum's the way to go, for sure. Absolutely. Now, we're going to talk about the Paragon board. This is the most important board after going through Pictar's spreadsheet, figuring out what glyphs are best to use with Poison Imbuement, what glyphs aren't good to use, what works, what modifiers work, what modifiers don't work. I think this is probably going to be the best Paragon board for damage, specifically with Poison Imbuement. I'm going to go through each board, talk about it, get a little in depth so you can get an understanding of why we are using these glyphs in these boards. So, first board, Closer. Most builds use the Closer glyph because it requires Dex, and this has 70 points of Dex available in this board, so you can get the most bang for your buck when you put the Closer glyph in your first board, right? Because we're getting cutthroat skill damage, getting damage reduction. We know cutthroat skill, marksman skill, and core skill for some reason in their own damage bucket when it comes to Poison Imbuement. So anything you can use to buff cutthroat, to buff marksman, because petulant points now, use marksman, use puncture, and then and core skill. So that's why we're doing that. And then get as much dex as we can, get a 20% damage, get a 200% armor. And then we work our way into Deadly Ambush. Now, when it comes to absolute pure damage, this would not be the best board to use. But we want to use Deadly Ambush because it has 54 strength within the Paragon nodes that allow us to use exploit glyph and get the most vulnerable damage that we can out of our exploit glyph. We are using poison trap, so we're getting damage to enemies affected by traps, damage reduction from enemies affected by traps. So this works well. It works well with the build, and we're maximizing our glyphs, right? So we want to do glyphs is where glyphs are where your power comes from endgame. Exploit is very strong. Vulnerable damage, very strong. They nerfed vulnerable damage. Well, they took away from the stat. So we want to be able to compromise and get as much vulnerable damage as we can. So that's why I put it in the Deadly Ambush board, because we can get the most strength that we can for the most amount of vulnerable damage. Third board is going to be Exploit Weakness. This is more vulnerable damage, more damage to enemies while vulnerable. We're using Canny. Canny requires intelligence. We can see Exploit Weakness has 49 available intelligence points around the glyph. So that's going to give us 97% non-physical damage, and then it's going to give us up to a 10% multiplicative modifier for stacking non-physical damage. Right? Non-physical damage, Poison Imbuement, 97%. Massive damage. Also, Exploit Weakness. We know that's a very good legendary node. Hunter Killer, damage to elites. Vulnerable, we want to get our rare node, and then we want to get all the magic nodes that give us more vulnerable. Vulnerable damage is important. And then Potion Healing, not one of the best rare nodes, but we need the int down here to juice up our Canny glyph. Also, that Canny damage snapshots with Poison Imbuement. Very important. Snapshotting damage is very important. It's going to apply the initial damage, and your damage over time isn't going to reduce as their health reduces. It's going to apply that initial burst of damage all the way throughout the entirety of the imbuement that you apply. Down into no witnesses, and then we are using the efficacy glyph. This is a huge glyph, massive glyph. It grants you 125% to all rare nodes, and then it gives you 20% multiplicative increased potency. This is damage modifier to your imbuement skill, your potency imbuement. So potency is pretty much with Poison Imbuement, the damage. It's 20% damage buff. And rare nodes increase to maximum life and percent damage. And the good thing about efficacy is you don't need to go over the required intelligence. You don't need to stack the intelligence like how we did with Canny or how we did with Exploit. Once you hit the 25 required intelligence, you don't need any more intelligence, and you can move on and you can get out of the board. It was weird looking at my character, like my character online. I don't have this int node, and I'm still hitting 29 out of 25. I'm not exactly sure why it's giving me more intelligence. I think it's from this rare node, because efficacy boosts the rare node, and it's going to boost that intelligence that it gives you. So you're actually not going to need this Paragon point. So you come in, get your max life, you get your glyph socket, you get your damage, and then down here, massive 50% damage to healthy. The critical strike damage isn't really going to help, because we know crit strike damage doesn't work with Poison Imbuement. But 50% damage to healthy from the Paragon board snapshots damage, right? So something like Exploit, passive, that gives you damage to healthy enemies. Something like Weapon Mastery. We know Weapon Mastery doesn't work with Poison Imbuement. The damage to healthy from Exploit passive does not snapshot with Poison Imbuement. So the rare nodes that have damage to healthy enemies are infinitely better than any other affix that has damage to healthy. Right? And then we have our other magic nodes, damage to healthy, damage to healthy, damage to healthy. And then we want to get out and we want to move into Cunning Stratagem, where we're using Bane. Cunning Stratagem has 49 strength available around the Paragon board, or excuse me, around the glyph socket. So we're coming in, we're getting 200 armor, we have the Bane, and then we have core skill damage, and then we are gaining 97% increased poison damage, along with the chance to double the amount of damage you do with Poison Imbuement. Huge, massive damage. Bane is crazy good glyph for Poison Imbuement. This is the best place to maximize Bane. All right. Final board is Eldritch Bounty. Eldritch Bounty, we put in Turf. We're getting 77.2 damage to close. We're also getting damage reduction. We're going to be, we're twisting blades, we're fighting close. This is going to help. And then this is also for that extra damage reduction. Only because we're going to need it when we're pushing higher nightmare tiers. For the rare nodes, none of these rare nodes really do anything for us. So if you wanted, you can spec out of these rare nodes, and you can use the potion healing somewhere else. We actually need to get through here just for the extra strength. But one thing you need to know, imbued skill damage is not the same as imbuement skill damage. Here we go. See, imbuement skill. See how this ready supply has imbuement skill? And then here we have imbued skill. Imbued skill is going to boost the damage of the core skill that you're using, or the marksman skill or cutthroat skill that you're using that is imbued. So it's not boosting the poison damage. Imbuement skill damage is what you want. It's the affix you want that's going to increase the poison imbuement damage. And as we move up here, this cluster right here is massive. We're getting non-physical damage and imbuement skill cooldown reduction. I mean, very slight cooldown reduction, but it's something. It's worth it. It's important. Cooldown reduction. Meta affix for sure. We're getting a nice boost to non-physical damage, and then we're working our way up into the Eldritch Bounty legendary node for 20% increased damage and matching resistance. So we get 20% poison resistance, and we get 20% increased damage to our Poison Imbuement. Now, while leveling, right? So if you wanted to use this Paragon board while you are leveling, I recommend using Eldritch Bounty as your third board, and then getting into Exploit Weakness in your last board. So then once you hit, I think around 97 is going to be when you'll be able to hit Eldritch Bounty or Exploit Weakness. Without, there's some like extra like rare nodes, or some extra like magic nodes here that I've added in. But if you didn't want the extra nodes, well, you hit level 97, you're going to be able to pretty much almost complete this in its entirety, where you hit all your glyphs and all your legendary nodes. It's for leveling up. But once you hit level 100, I highly recommend that you use the board in this layout. Only because of the intelligence and strength requirements with the rare nodes. Over here, we're going to get increased vulnerable. Over here, we're going to get increased vulnerable damage. So if you have this as your sixth board, and you may not have 630 strength to work with, you're not going to get the increased effects of the rare nodes. So that's why we're switching up later to make sure we get the most bang for our buck when it comes to vulnerable damage. What you can do, something that I have done also, if you didn't want this rare node, you can work into things like right here is some extra core skill damage. Right, some extra core skill damage. If you have the extra Paragon points, you can do the extra core skill. Extra damage to healthy right here. A lot to work with this setup. You can mix and match. If you wanted to, let's say, take out 3 from here, right? You didn't want that, and then you didn't want these 3, and you wanted to go into this extra core skill, basic skill right here. That's also a possibility. Totally viable. Boost up that damage for sure. You don't really need the extra potion healing. But this is it. This is it right here. The best glyphs, the best Paragon board for Poison Imbuement and pushing higher nightmare tiers on your way to tier 100. I hope you liked the video. I hope it was well informed. Make sure you drop a like, hit the sub button, share it with your buddies. Take it easy.